Hey guys, it's Alex Wanzer with your Unit 3 virtual preview. I hope everyone had a great start and almost finished to their October. Unit 3 is an awesome unit because we talk about Thanksgiving, and I feel like the rest of the year is just a really fun time for everyone. In this virtual preview, I'm going to go over what you will see in this unit, as well as a breakdown of another one of my AMLs for the unit. The AML framework that you'll see in this unit is going to be a scholar investigation. There's not a huge difference between the two frameworks, but I wanted to do a couple of each so you would feel comfortable using both. All right, let's get started. All right, so we're first going to start with the purpose of the unit. So for Unit 3, scholars will learn about different customs and traditions associated with celebrations as expressions of culture. Scholars will learn about customs that we have in the U.S., for example, holidays and parades, and then they will learn about other cultures, customs, and traditions. By the end of the unit, scholars should be able to compare and contrast as well as communicate their thoughts in pictures and words to share with others. For humanities, scholars will be able to learn about customs and traditions in the U.S. They will learn that there are similarities and differences in customs and traditions. They will be able to communicate their thoughts in words or pictures in order to share with others. And finally, they will learn to accept the similarities and differences among their other cultures and their own. In science, scholars are learning how they can discover ideas for themselves and share their ideas using their senses and their experiences in the world. Scholars will begin to dive deeper into these ideas and connect to how other people and places in the world discover and share their ideas. Scholars will connect that the ideas shared by a group of people can become customs, holidays, and traditions. They will understand that when this happens, a culture is built. Scholars can then discover the culture of their classroom, home, school, community, and country. They will learn there are things that are the same in these cultures, and sometimes there are things that are different in these cultures. Finally, this will allow scholars to connect their culture to other cultures found around the world to see how people discover and express ideas in the same or different ways. For science, scholars will be able to use their senses to share ideas about the world around them. They will discover how cultures and other people share their ideas and discover the world around them. Scholars will explore magnets and how they attract or do not attract to certain objects. They will also experience different directions and movement through force and motion. Finally, they will learn about heat, light, and sound energy and how each play a role in their daily lives. In the humanities scope and sequence, the important vocabulary for scholars to know is describe, explain, family, customs, traditions, identify, music, clothing, food, voting, similarity, and difference. The readiness teaks are K.11b, which is to identify similarities and differences among people, such as music, clothing, and food. And also K.12a, which is to describe and explain the importance of family customs and traditions. Although K.11b spirals in Unit 6, we talk about Thanksgiving more in this unit, so make sure to hit both of them because K.12a does not spiral. You can see how the readiness teaks progress and what they will be when scholars get to first and second grade. In the science scope and sequence, the important vocabulary for scholars to know is observe, describe, location, above, below, behind, in front of, beside, senses, magnet, and investigation. The readiness teaks are K.6c, which is to observe and describe the location of an object in relation to another, such as above, below, behind, in front of, and beside. Even though there's only one readiness teaks, which does not spiral, I would be sure to hit this teak in order for scholars to have been introduced to the material so it won't be brand new to them when they see it again in first and second grade. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the way I would teach this lesson. This lesson is going to be broken down into 3 days. The first part of the instructional framework is framing the inquiry, which basically means the introduction to material being taught for the lesson. For the first day, do, now, and hook, I'm going to show a brain pop on energy sources, but I'm just going to show the light portion. and then I'll have a brief discussion about the lesson and what scholars will be learning. I'm going to talk about the importance of light and how we use it in our daily lives. For the second day, do now and hook, I'm going to show the brain pop again, but I'm only going to show the sound portion. And then I'll have a brief discussion about sound energy and how sound is made. I'm going to tell them or explain to them that sound is a vibration which is caused by a back and forth movement, which is caused by energy, and this is how we get sound. For day 3, do now hook, I'm going to show the last part of the brain pop, which is the heat portion, or you can replay the entire brain pop to refresh scholar memory, and then have a brief discussion about heat energy and how it's made. I'm going to briefly talk about how heat is made in our bodies as well as outside of our bodies. By doing all of these activities, scholars' knowledge will be activated and they will be engaged in the discussion or the lesson. During the framing the inquiry, the most important things you want to make sure you're doing are engaging scholars in the discussion and activating prior knowledge by asking the scholars how they use this type of energy in their daily lives. Also, scholars should be able to connect the material to their own lives. For scholar investigation, I'm going to chart each energy source on the respective days and fill out the questions with scholars. I'm going to ask how we use our 5 senses with each energy source. For day 1, we're going to go over light energy, and if we can smell, touch, taste, hear, or see light. I will do the same thing for day 2 and day 3. Day 2 being sound energy and day 3 being heat energy. I will also use the same questions and chart the answers on the chart paper. When the chart is completed, you can hang this up on your science wall to have a resource that scholars can refer to throughout the year. The discussion and synthesis portion of the framework, I will have scholars discuss with myself and each other. I will pose different questions and have scholars do turn-in talks or share out whole group. Make sure you enforce habits of discussion, which are eyes tracking, hands in lap, ears listening, just basically making sure that scholars are paying attention to other scholars when they are doing their turn-in talks. This is a time for scholars to deepen their thinking by asking questions and summarizing material in order for them to solidify key takeaways. Scholars should engage in discussion, be respectful of their partners, answer questions, and get other perspectives from their partner in order to capture those key takeaways. For the last part of this instructional framework, application and verification, which is just the IP and exit ticket of the gradual release framework, I'm going to have scholars complete a light worksheet on day 1, a sound sort on day 2, and a heat coloring sheet on day 3. Make sure in this last part, scholars can apply understanding of the lesson, and you can also clear up any misconceptions scholars might have. This is also a good time to pull a small group for scholars that might still be struggling. Alright, now let's go over the misconceptions. For humanities misconceptions, scholars may think the way they dress, the music they hear, and the food they eat is the same for everyone. Scholars may think that their tradition or custom is the only one that matters. Scholars may not know the traditions that are associated with patriotic holidays. Scholars may not know other holidays that are celebrated around the world. Scholars may think that their tradition or custom is the only one that matters. Scholars may think their friends have the same tradition as they do. And finally, when we talk about voting and scholars get a chance to vote, they may get upset if their vote doesn't win, or they may think their vote is the best. For science misconceptions, scholars may not know the direction or prepositional location words. Scholars may not be able to move objects in the specific way because gross and fine motor skills are not fully developed. Scholars may not understand the vocabulary in order to describe the way objects move. Scholars may not understand how we get light, sound, and heat energy. Scholars may not understand how light, sound, and heat energy travel. Scholars may confuse the 5 senses when describing objects, organisms, or events. Scholars may not understand how magnets attract. Scholars may not understand how an object moves or does not move when exposed to a magnet. And finally, scholars may not know the vocabulary in order to describe the way an object moves. For humanities resources, there is a link to the Brain Pop on Thanksgiving. The login is PeakK5 and the password is BrainPop. There is a turkey hat activity as well as a turkey cutout activity. Thanksgiving beginning sounds matching worksheet, Thanksgiving syllables worksheet, and an example voting ballot for favorite cookies. For science, there are a lot of good resources in the STEM Scopes books for magnets. There is an example anchor chart for energy sources, 4 BrainPop links for heat, light, sound, and energy sources, a magnet sort, a sources of light worksheet, and a push and pull worksheet. And I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck, and I hope you have tons of fun with this unit. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Bye!